from Significant. This is Crack It in an Hour.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crack It in an Hour. We take a big, crazy, hairy problem facing the world, would you say, facing society, or just something that we think is interesting, and try to crack it in 1 hour. I'm Simon.
I'm Jesse.
I'm Roman.
There you guys. See, this time I didn't introduce you guys. I got you to just introduce
that was
yourselves.
nice.
This is progress. This is great. So if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's start the clock. We got a whole new problem to solve this week. And this week, I believe, Roman, you have the problem. We are coming in. Jesse and I are coming in fresh. We don't know anything about it.
I'm the host, you guys. All right. So there's going to be some eye rolling on that problem, you guys, because we talked about it so much in the last couple of months in our professional setting, in our personal lives too, while we share things. It's like, it's one of my obsessions. There's going to be a shit ton of eye rolls. And that problem is, how do we fix the sleep crisis in America?
I knew it.
Sleep. Your favorite.
I literally knew it.
Well, can you? Okay, so before
let me introduce the problem a little.
Yes, please.
A little more. So I'm going to do a bit of a data dump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to substantiate the problem. You have about 35% of US adults reporting to sleep less than a quote unquote required amount of 7 hours. To put it into perspective, because I was like, 35%, is that big? Is that not big? Okay. I was like, how many people smoke in the US? I'm like, okay, 11% of US adults smoke cigarettes. This is CDC data. So I'll trust that data. The 35% mark of smokers was in the mid 80s.
Okay.
Right? To give you like mid 80s, I don't even remember that time because I was too like little-ish, but like early 90s, I remember when you could smoke on a plane and you could all of that thing that people talk about when they're over 40, right? Let's talk about teenagers. 73% of high school students don't get enough sleep on school nights. Again, CDC data. The implication of what I call, and many people call the sleep crisis, the implications are financial, obviously, because there's massive productivity loss in the workplace. There's health. It leads to Alzheimer's, heart disease, mental health struggles, and obviously there's also financial cost there. But like, let's just stop at health because it's, to me, a little more important. It is a big subject in today's society because technology is now playing a role in poor sleep. I'm sure we're going to get to talk about how it is also maybe helping. It will be part of our conversation, I'm sure.
Do we know if the sleep stats have gotten worse or better over time?
They've gotten worse.
They have. Okay.
They have gotten worse. Yes. Okay. So that's my question today. How do we fix the sleep crisis in America? And for the record, I did have some eye rolls from Jesse when I introduced the subject.
Okay.
Well, the importance of sleep is subjective.
Sure. I'm just looking at data.
I'm kidding. You brought real data.
What's interesting is that actually two of our active clients that we don't need to name are like in the vicinity of sleep, right? So we did have that conversation.
It's becoming a bigger topic in our lives.
Yeah, in our personal lives, but also in society. And it's not just age. It's like it's work culture has taken it. Like there's that guy called Matthew Walker. I don't know if you've read his book. He's like a massive public figure in terms of he's an author and neuroscientist. He's a big public figure and like actually raising awareness around that crisis. And so he's been like on a shit ton of podcasts. He wrote a couple of books. I read one of them. It's really interesting. And so it is becoming a subject, but it hasn't been solved.
Okay, this is great. Can I propose a new part of our podcast? This is episode 3. We're still on early days.
Go on.
Which is, the goal is to crack it in an hour. Can I propose we set the rule right now of what defines we cracked it? What are we looking to achieve with this? Are we looking to achieve how we change society we create a framework for how we change society to solve this? Are we talking about how we create a plan to attack it? What is our goal here today? What are we going to try and do in the next hour as far as cracking this problem? Get people to sleep better?
Well, the long-term goal is lower that 35% number.
Lower
right?
the 35% number.
The next, 55 minutes, I would guess, would be first identify what the problem. Do people know about?
Okay, identify the problem.
Do we have an awareness issue, or do we have like just a take in action issue?
Mm-hmm.
I would guess there is an awareness issue, so we need to talk about that.
Yeah,
and I think we need to talk about actions. What is going to lead people to be more overtly willing to improve their sleep? Right, intentionally, not overtly. Right,
to move people to
in
move
theory,
people to sleep better.
in theory, the tools already exist. I mean, we've had endless innovations in the last,
You mean beds?
couple. Yeah. Yes. Thank
Beds
you.
have gotten comfier.
Beds are comfier than ever before.
Spoken like a strategist there.
Yeah, real insight. No, but I mean, like not every possible innovation, but in the last 5 years, so many innovations around sleep. So in theory, let's say, it's not like we need to invent some new thing.
We don't need to invent a new bed.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have to figure out what is the gap between knowledge and action here, and how do you get people to take it?
I love that.
I
Okay,
agree.
so here we go. Here's what we're going to try and do over the next hour. Just to recap, we are going to identify the problem, see if there's an awareness problem very specifically. Then we're going to try and figure out some steps, tactics, motivations, whatever you want to call them, that would lead people to move. They would lead people to sleep better or move people to sleep better. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first, let's identify the problem here. What is the problem here? Is it that people don't know sleep is important? Is it that people don't realize they're not sleeping enough? Is it that
Well,
Jesse, you start there.
I have a fundamental question, which I'm not sure we'll have the data to answer this directly in front of us. So maybe we can talk about it theoretically, but somehow we're measuring that people are not sleeping well enough. And I'm assuming that the base of that measurement is hours per night.
Biological.
Correct.
And we're saying that there are implications to that, health implications.
Yeah.
But my question is, how many people not getting enough sleep are experiencing less happiness in their day-to-day lives? Because that is like the fundamental. It is so hard for people to act against long-term outcomes, and health is always a long-term outcome.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Please continue, Jesse.
I have a lot of.
Roman's going to cut you off.
Go on.
Oh no.
I've said something.
I was going to ask a question about your question, because you talked about happiness. I was like, okay, I have a big counter on that one. But then you talked about more of a way to approach the problem. Like when you say people can't really think about long-term implications of their decisions, this is getting into how do you frame that problem. So what can you elaborate
I brought the two things together.
At?
My brain is maybe going faster than
I think I know where you're going.
Want it to
and
go.
I know the parallel you're about to draw.
Do I actually feel the impact of lack of sleep in my day-to-day life in a way that, like, if you boil down somebody's life to I'm having a good day or a bad day, let's just talk very simply. If I sleep 5 hours a night and I'm having a good day, why do I feel the need to change anything? And I'm curious about the correlation between somebody's sleep habits and their happiness. And I bring it up.
Short-term happiness.
Yeah. And I bring that up because I'm obviously the skeptic on this topic. Not that I disagree with the data and the actual implications of health. I just don't know how much people actually need to change their sleep in order to have an impact on their daily life.
This is a good, can I, just for 1 second, I'd like to level set here, because this is a good point to point out what I think is going to be part of this conversation, which I think is very healthy. For the record, Roman, you're very into sleep. You track your sleep. You're more into sleep than I think most average people are. Jesse, you are not a big sleeper, right?
Correct.
You do not sleep.
I sleep, and I'm not anti-sleep.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear. This is not one of those, like, I take pride in only sleeping 3 hours a night.
Yeah, exactly. To that point, you aren't a like, oh, I'm so hardcore because I only sleep 3 hours. You just don't sleep much.
Yes. And I think that you can be quite happy if you don't focus too much on how little sleep. Anyway, I think we're getting off topic a little bit.
I thought it was just important to set that up.
I think it's good because this is going to be the dynamics of this podcast.
And for the record, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think
you're right, Simon. It's going to be the dynamics of this episode. Let me be provocative because it's my brand and counter your point, Jesse.
He's already got a brand after 3 episodes. I love it.
It's my middle name. Do you smoke cigarettes?
No.
Do you wish you did?
Do you?
Note the hesitation.
Do you know? I'm sure you know smokers or people who have been smokers. Okay.
Yes.
When you smoke cigarettes, you could ask the same question.
Can I smoke and be happy?
Yeah. You absolutely can smoke and be happy and wake up every day and go to work and then smoke and you're very, very happy. This is the same kind of subject we're talking about.
Yes, but now we're going to get into a philosophical discussion about life, which is you could smoke your whole life and be happy. And what's 100%. Wrong with that?
Yeah. Here's the way I always think about it with stuff like this, which is like I've had problems with depression before. And I always didn't realize I was depressed until after I got out of the depression. And then I was like, oh, I had days that were high and low during my depression, but you never went as high and you were always just generally a lot lower. And you didn't realize it until you got out of it that you were like, oh, I was depressed. And so the thing I always think about with sleep, and this is just from my own life, which is like, I can have a good day on 6 hours, but that same day won't be as good as if I had a good amount of sleep.
Well, and I
know that's very simplified.
No, it's, I mean, I think that starts to get to some of the root of the inertia problem, which I do believe the core of the problem is inertia. Like, I mean, maybe there is some awareness of it because if you aren't even thinking about sleep and you wake up and you feel fine, you assume you got good sleep. Well. Yeah. I mean, I think I've said this to you guys, maybe even earlier today. I didn't know I was bad at sleep until somebody here at this table told me I was bad at sleep. But yeah, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. But I think inertia is probably the bigger problem. And the problem with that is you're asking people to take action on something they don't know. You know, because you're told it's a good comparison. You don't know that your day could be better until you have a better day. But then you're saying to somebody here, like, you don't even know how great it could be. So do something and find out.
Change your entire routine to get to bed 2 hours earlier. They're like, well, wait a second. I like playing video games or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Okay. So awareness is clear. Is it awareness? That's the problem. And I'm being a little high level right now. Is awareness the problem or is it awareness plus motivation? Because I think what you're talking to is a good point, which is you could be like, hey, did you know you're not sleeping very well? And you might go, yeah, I don't care.
I mean, I think if you actually want to have this, my opinion, obviously, if you want to have material impact on the problem, I think you start with the people that have an inertia problem versus the people. You're already starting one step forward. If you're starting all the way back with a group of people who don't even know that they're not sleeping well enough, then I think you're
okay. So we are going to target the people who are already aware that they're having bad sleep.
Yeah, I'm not sleeping well. I know this is a problem, but there's a real inertia issue.
Now
I think most people who don't sleep well know it.
Yes, maybe.
Do you think teenagers know?
Maybe not.
That's a great question.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That is a really interesting.
I do fight. I don't fight. I do discuss that subject a lot with my teenage daughter because she doesn't sleep enough.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, but do you know what it would be like if you slept more?
Yeah.
I was like, no, but I'm fine.
Yeah.
But that's
And
inertia.
and then we told her, your lack of sleep impacts other things happening with your body right now that you don't like. And she was like, 2 days later, sleeping 2 more hours on Saturday morning.
Did it work?
It's not immediate.
Does she think it? Sorry, did she think it's working, or did she feeling?
I know what you're talking about.
It's not immediate.
Yes.
But so it's like we'll see.
Right.
But my point is, it was the carrot.
Okay, this is interesting because I'm not a great sleeper. I'm even worse at drinking water, and
next episode.
No, I have no interest in that episode whatsoever. Please don't bring that forward.
Don't get me started on that one. And I never
big water.
Literally did not care until didn't care at all. And the only time I even considered starting to care is when someone said to me, you know, you're like exploring all of these skincare products and spending all of this money on skincare, but if you just drank some water, I bet your skin would be significantly better. And I was like, I am now interested in water. And I hate to boil it down to that, but it's true, and I'm not gonna deny it. I'm like, but it's not just the vanity part of it. It's a very clear, like, it's one thing to say, hey, you think you're having a great day, but you could have an even better day. Yeah. It's another thing to say, hey, problem solution. That's how pretty much our brains work. You do this would happen. And I'm like, okay, now I'm interested.
So is it, okay, this is great because we got a target now of people who know they don't sleep, but they aren't doing anything about it. You're talking to the idea of basically showing them carrots, right? Here are the carrots of sleep.
And I know it is like better skin is let's call it a not quite long-term, but more of a medium-term solution. But I would consider it a short-term outcome. Totally. Because like, let's go back to, because there's two parts to this problem. There's people who are aware, but they have an inertia problem. The root of the inertia problem is you have no motivation right in front of you. Yeah. And we are far more motivated by the things that we can predict and achieve right in front of us than we are. This is why, and we don't have to get into this, but this is why, like, nobody cares as much as they should about sustainability, because we're like, well,
it's a tomorrow problem.
That's a 40, 50, 60, 70 year. I don't know. Like, I'll be dead by then.
Yeah.
Next episode.
After the water episode.
Oh God, this is going to go real depressing.
But you know, I mean, that's just a true, like, we're not that motivated by those.
It's the same thing with savings, which we've done savings.
You're motivated by immediate gains.
Yeah.
Immediate gains.
It's
like that's where climate change fucked up in the marketing in the next episode. But the sleep is the same thing. Immediate gain, better skincare. Immediate as in like not the minute, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not talking about when you're 65 or 75.
Okay, see, now I'm interested in sleep.
We're talking about, okay, the next couple of months, maybe you're going to see a result. Oh.
Yeah.
So
I bet you could even do faster than that. Like, I mean, like if you sleep better, you're going to have better performance at whatever you do tomorrow. I buy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But so, like, sorry, I'm going to take a bit of a tangent here because I think it might lead us somewhere towards the end. To me, the question is like more than the audience, the blah, 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 the blah, blah, blah. It's like, how did we get here? What are the cultural, societal shifts that have happened in the last few decades that have gotten us here?
Mm-hmm.
And I can put the first subject on the table that we can talk about is corporate America.
Yeah, like pride in the rise and grind.
The hustle, constant hustle. Yeah. And if you don't work like 15-hour days, then you're not good at what you do. Yeah. It's a thing. When you work in bigger organizations, I mean, and obviously we've been a little more privy to it because we're in the service business and it's even more like present. Yeah. But it is still a thing to this day. I feel like the next generation is beginning to say,
no,
that's a little stupid. Yeah. So I'm probably not going to do that.
Which is good, because I would have been terrified by the no, now it's 20 hours a day you need to be working. Like if they went flip the other way.
Yeah. It's kind of like not just normalizing sleep deprivation, it's like encouraging it.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'll add another one to that, which is obviously there was like the climbing the ladder obsession. Then there was sort of a rise and grind kind of mindset. Then there was what I would call like the proliferation of productivity, which was turning every interest into something to be productive around. Like the gig economy and the side hustle economy started with good intentions. It was like, hey, work around the system, find new ways to like make a little bit of cash. But then it became every interest you have should actually be a business. And you like, oh, you're knitting? Well, why don't you sell what you knit? Yeah. Oh, you're doing, and you're like, okay, yeah, like I can't even do things for fun anymore. Everything has to become a productivity gain.
And where are you going to take the time from?
Yeah. Now even things that forget just like sleep, the concept of like hanging out or chilling out or relaxing became productivity activities.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because I think you're bringing up an interesting point of tension, which is, do you think to sell sleep, you sell it in service of the existing problem, which is we can help you be more productive, we can help you do this, or is it a bigger, more holistic thing of sleep as a part of a more balanced lifestyle?
I would, on a personal level, I would love to see a more societal shift away from like the productivity obsessed. But I think that there's going to be a split audience on that. I think you'd have to, if any brand who wanted to have this conversation, I think you'd have to make a choice, because you could go either way. You could talk about sleep in service of what you want to achieve, or
Sadly,
you can talk
I think
about
that's an easier sell.
The productivity angle?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, why is wellness exploding? It's not just in the purpose, like the wellness business being like on a whole nother level than it was 5 years ago. It's not just because people want to be productive.
Yeah, but even the act of wellness has become an act of productivity.
Yeah, that is true.
The wellness thing
unpack
is...
that. Let's talk about it.
I
That's
mean,
interesting.
Literally, like what was supposed to be. I think what started, and it was great when, because I even think not just like you mentioned, like the newer generation maybe starting to be like, I don't know about that. I think that was already happening, but the momentum got unfortunately taken over by capitalism, really. But it was like, hey, we should be more balanced. We should invest in our wellness. Self-care really became a thing like it like in culture like 10 years ago as a really, really big thing. But now all these brands saw the opportunity in wellness and self-care and started building entire like ecosystems and products around these things, and told people to have routines and to buy this, and you need to buy that, and you need to do this, and you need to wake up at this time and eat this thing and do this.
That's what I mean. It's like even wellness now kind of adapted I guess what you call the attitude of rise and grind culture, right? Like wellness isn't about balance anymore. It sells the idea of balance through rigor and being dedicated to it.
Why did people sleep in the first place? Other than like, I know that's an insane question, but like we have way overcomplicated our society. Totally. And when you said balance, I was thinking like, no one was thinking about balance. Like, did you literally sleep out of
No one, as in the people who invented mammals? Like, why do people sleep in the first place?
Yes.
Can you unpack that question?
It's as dumb as it sounds, which is like,
to be able to live.
You need it to live.
You need it to live. It's like, why do people eat? It's the same. It's the exact same answer.
You fell asleep because you were tired, and you slept because the next day.
Because your body needs to rest to be able to recover, for your cells to recover. In layman terms, if you want to be able to live your life every day, you need to sleep. And I don't have that data, but it's probably somewhere out there. How many days without sleeping do you need to get through before you actually die. That probably exists somewhere. Like, say you're going to be like...
Oh, yeah, there is.
So you need sleep to live. It's the same as drinking water and eating food and putting food in your body. No, you see what I mean? No, it's, I'm not, sorry, outside of like hydration, blah, blah, it's the same as like...
Yeah.
It's biological needs.
I mean, I know it's a very like literal dumb question, but it's interesting to me because I think you always have two options when you're looking at a problem like this. You can go back to the beginning and say, if this is literally like, this was just life. Like you sleep to live and you should sleep. And that is, it's like, make it more simple. Or you have the other conversation, which looks more to the future and says, hey, the need hasn't changed, but context has. We now live in a way more complex society with a lot more technology, and there's more demands on us and more pressure. So in the past, sleep was about just literally survival, but now we need it to balance out all the chaos of life around us. And normally I lean towards the context side. But there's something about this conversation that makes me want to go back towards the like, just make it simple. Make it feel simple. The easiest thing in the world should be falling asleep.
But so yes. Let's couple that with what you said earlier, which I really agree with around, I don't know, my brain translated it as immediate gains, but whatever. Like, how does the simplicity and like the immediacy of the results can intersect?
Well, if somebody paid me money to be a better sleeper, I might consider
that is
it.
interesting though, because I think what you're trying to figure out now is like, if someone knows they're not sleeping well, they know it's fundamental to their well-being. They know it's going to be what makes them good, and they're clearly not doing it still. There's obvious massive hurdles getting in the way there, right? Like it's probably habits. It's probably what they deem to be kind of like probably, if I had to guess, probably a little bit of it is just a feeling of a lack of time to themselves. Cause I know that's why I often stay up.
It's called bedtime procrastination.
Is it? So it's like how, if we're just going to say in the very, very short term, we are going to help get people sleep better. What are those barriers to overcome for these people if they already know that they're not sleeping better?
I think you have to start by stopping shaming people for sleeping badly.
Yeah, Roman.
Yeah.
No, come on, fuck off, you guys.
I never felt shamed. I will say that. But it's because I'll give you my version of like, yes, all the reasons why I don't sleep well,
right?
Everything that you talked about, many other hurdles. Sometimes I feel like my brain just doesn't shut off.
Yeah.
But what I decided years, like in high school, I decided, because I've always been a pretty bad sleeper. Actually, ask my parents. As a baby, I was the worst.
Really?
Never slept.
Or maybe you're part of like the very low percentage of people who literally can run on less sleep. Maybe.
But what I decided years ago was I just wasn't going to be stressed about it anymore. Like, because turning the idea of sleeping badly into something that I now had to be stressed about constantly. If I woke up every morning and was like stressed out that I wasn't getting enough sleep, that was having way more of a negative effect on me than the sleep itself.
Right.
So I do think the idea of making people like, yes, you do have to push people towards action, but how do you do it in a way that doesn't make them feel bad for how they're currently sleeping? Because the minute you turn it into like a stressful thing that they need to work on and improve on, you're like, well, great, let me add it to my to-do list.
I don't disagree. I think that makes sense. I'm trying to think of what's the flip side. Like, here's a bad, crazy idea. Do you gamify sleep?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Do you find a way to make it more interesting for people to get good at?
Which is what arguably a lot of the wearables are trying to do.
Some wearables are trying to do that for sure. I don't know.
Obviously, I see it maybe as a bigger problem than you guys see it. But I think you need to go a level. I think it might be a generational issue. And I think we need to start with young people if we want to change long-term behavior.
Right.
There's some crazy stats about like the impact of sleep on ACT results. Like they did some samples around like some schools starting school later,
Right.
as opposed to like 8 a.m. You go to school at like 9:30, so you get an extra 90 minutes of sleep. SAT scores go up. Like it crazy, like the results that it can get. There's some crazy studies around like mental health and suicide rates when you have less sleep. Similarly,
Well, I can
they did
imagine.
some like,
Yeah.
and so if it's becoming that proven scientifically, that big on health and the economy, you need to think about how to do a drastic shift long term.
Yeah.
So like it's like similar to at some point, governments around the world were like, all right, I guess people are going to need to smoke a little less.
I was just going to say, back to your smoking statistic, how did we get from 35% to 11%?
So we're going to have to do something about it.
Less cool people.
So there's legislation, there's public health campaigns, there's a lot of that. And there's changes in like just talking about school. Of course, it's complicated, but it's possible to get schools to start a little later. It's not impossible.
The thing about, let's talk about the cigarette comparison, because I think the cigarette comparison, obviously, most of it was based on fear, right? It was like, smoke cigarettes, you're going to get cancer. Look at what your lungs look like. This is terrifying. Holy crap. I don't want that. Okay, I'll stop smoking.
Yeah.
That I get how quickly, like you put that in front of people, you show them the truth, you do this, you do that, you do this, stop smoking. Got it. Pretty clear. Sleep's not the same direct. Now, I don't know. You could say, look, if you sleep, you increase your chances of Alzheimer's, but like,
sorry, and don't quote me on Alzheimer's because I couldn't completely verify this. Some people say,
and it is sort of like
definitely proven for like heart disease, mental health. But to your point,
it's not like a black lung.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not visual.
Well,
exactly.
That's exactly the thing. Visualization.
Yeah.
Like, but that's a really interesting opportunity, because there are ways that you could visualize the impact of something, even if it's not the physical manifestation biologically. Like if you could figure out how to, I don't know, this is like probably a bad idea, but like if you created an installation that even like that created energy, and the energy was correlating to the sleep patterns of the like I'm imagining something in the middle of New York that is like emitting like very dim, sad light. And you're like, oh, this is basically the energy of America right now based on how much sleep everyone got last night. And you're like, wow, that's sad. I'm not saying that's the best idea, but I'm saying that there are ways that you could maybe start to visualize like the energetic impact of the societal.
Energy's tough.
Yeah.
Can I give you a really direct one? Can I give you just like, if I could say to you, hey, I have a stat that proves that if you sleep 8 hours a night, you make $20,000 more a year. Bad example, but like just something like that. I go, ooh, okay. Now I see why I need to sleep.
It's the drink water and your skin will be better.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think like, I don't mean to be like, sometimes getting people to do the right thing, you're not doing it the right ways necessarily. And I think sadly, that's a thing I think I run into a lot with my job. You know what I mean? Is you wish it was just like, if you have a rational conversation about what's right with people, they'll listen. They don't. And often, not always, but often. And I think that is one of those things that like, if you could dangle like not a black lung, but if you could dangle an equivalent of, if you do this, this happens to you in a very concrete way, I think then you start to get to some interesting places. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I imagine there probably is a sleep deficit with people less wealthy than people who are more wealthy, but I don't know if that's the case. That is
absolutely correct. It's a massive disclaimer on this conversation is that we're definitely part of the 10% and we have access to more resources to sleep better. We don't need to do double, triple shifts. Like, so the lower your income bracket, the worse your sleep is.
Right. And that's kind of like a chicken and the egg conversation then too, right? Because you can't say, we'll just sleep more and your chances of making more money will increase, because they're going to go, no, I'm losing sleep because of all the jobs I need to work.
Totally. Yeah.
That's fair.
Can I ask a question? Because we talked about, I love like you got to show like semi-immediate results. Like if you do this happens. I think we've been circling around this for a few minutes. But what about anti-aging medicine or anything medicine? Sorry, the industry.
Interesting.
People actually take things for a result they're hoping to happen decades from now. Like, and it's not measurable. It's not quantifiable. How the fuck did they, maybe it's vanity, but how did they build such a massive industry on a promise that is sometimes false? It's the only thing, the only industry I could think of.
But what
because I agree with that insight generally.
Can you give an example of a product like that?
You're going to put cream around your eyes when you're 30 years old, and you're going to get wrinkles at 48, not at 42.
I still think with most of those, I could be wrong, but I still think most of those, there is some form of, and look, it's already working, right? Like I don't think people are like, see, you're saying no, and Jesse's saying yes.
I mean, I don't have the actual timeline on this, but I feel like the anti-aging industry really blew up with people who were already aging.
Yeah.
And that's where you saw a lot. That's where it got really, really popular. And there, you did see effects.
Yeah.
But then the younger generation was like, oh, well, we should be doing these things preventatively. Like Botox was something that you did when you started seeing wrinkles and you're like, oh, I want these to go away. And now you have like women in their 20s doing preventative Botox.
Yeah, but preventatively, we're talking about the same thing.
Yes, I know. I think it's really, and actually, and I don't have the stats on this, so I'm just going to make it up. But like, I have a theory that sunscreen, which was the thing that was like protecting people from skin cancer. No one cared about that. But the minute sunscreen was like anti-aging, and this is the best preventative aging, people were like, sunscreen, hell yeah. Like,
I love sunscreen.
I'm going to get big on
high-end sunscreen.
Yeah.
But frankly, that might be the angle, because sleep
I'm interested.
is a contributor to a longer life.
Yeah, I still don't. That's a tough sell. That's a tough sell.
It's because it's not proven immediately, right? But it's the same as like if sunscreen.
Like if you said even with cigarettes, when you were like, hey, did you know if you smoke cigarettes, chances are you're not going to live as long? I was like, cool, sure. But then they're like black lung. I was like, okay, I'll stop smoking. You know what I mean? Like it's like I think it's a good support. I don't think it's the thing to make, like if you said, I don't know, do you know a stat like around like if you sleep X amount, you're going to live this much longer?
No.
I think
it exists somewhere.
I agree. I'm not challenging that. I bet it's true. But I do think you need this equals this. Here we go.
Well, I think that like, okay, let's go back to Roman, what you said about if you really want to make a shift, you actually have to start with the younger generation. For the sake of this conversation, let's say it's too late for the rest of us. You cannot convince anyone over the age of 25 to change their sleep habit. It's too late. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll be a late adopter on this whole journey. Yeah. But if you start having like, I know that what you're not buying the idea of preventative necessarily. And I do
as a motivator, I'm not.
Motivator, although I do agree with that. I do still think that you have to introduce other components to it, but I think that there's permission to have the conversation at a different level with people who haven't even yet experienced the full effects of life getting in the way of your ability to sleep.
Mm-hmm. If I said to you, let's speak to teenagers in high school. If I said to high schoolers, did you know that for every hour extra you sleep on top of 6 hours, you increase your chances of getting into a great college by X percent? Like, I'm just trying to think of something like just on that sort of stuff.
I don't know that you're going to get there rationally, but you remember the like, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. Are your children sleeping?
Are you sleeping? Yeah, exactly.
Bring back that pain.
Because it's just like, it's crying for like it's a little bit like, we all know sleep's important. Yes. We all know you got to get a good amount of sleep. Yes. Why exactly? And then when you get into the why exactly, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying they're not particularly motivating in that moment.
Yeah, I get you. You need personal, like what's in it for me
Yes,
right now.
Exactly.
It's two things. It's the for me and it's the right now. Because if I like back to your question around sleep stats, there is one that is getting close. That is around natural killer cells, which are necessary, not even necessary, critical for immune function. That says that after just one night of only 4 to 5 hours of sleep, your natural killer cells drop by 70%.
Wow. So
meaning
you literally,
your immune system,
your immune system falls apart. Right.
So I'm quite sure the stat, if you apply it to
Jesse, this is,
if you apply,
you might never get sick again if you sleep 8 hours.
If you apply it to 55 years, I'm quite sure it leads to like a younger death.
Right.
But again, I'm not answering your question
I know.
For me right now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the solution is for me right now. I don't know. I'm torn because 100% in all of marketing for me right now works better than the other. The counter is the aging.
But can I give you another challenge on this? I know that we haven't cracked the inertia challenge, but
I don't know if we've ever been more far apart on this on a topic than this one so far.
I know it's an interesting one. And so here's another challenge, and I'll just use myself again as an example. I am aware of the problem. I can understand the benefits. I am interested in getting more sleep. So I'm like, let's say past the inertia point, but I feel like I can't control it. I feel like it is not in my control. And then you begin the cycle of frustration,
right?
Where now I've just introduced a component to my life that frankly, I feel I'm failing at.
Right.
When before I never considered it a failure.
Right.
And now I'm more stressed out than I've ever been because I'm trying so hard to do something that, like, when I go to bed, my intention every night is to have a great night of sleep.
Right.
And if I can't, like, at some point, like, I think one of the reasons that it is so hard to fundamentally change this is because the reward system is not totally in your control. And so anyone that you sort of get past the inertia could very quickly go back into the cycle of being like, fuck this, because if I can't do anything to change it, there are probably a million things I haven't tried. I'll say that.
But you brought something very interesting into my head that I'm gonna try and sell you on that is completely irrational. Okay? So now I'm going to a completely different place. You get into bed with the intent of going to sleep, right? What if the whole way of doing this was we're going to start a trend called 12 hours in bed, and it doesn't matter. Just enjoy. How can you enjoy spending 12 hours in bed? You don't need to sleep. Just make 12 hours your goal, to spend 12 hours in bed and hang out. Why? It feels good. Feels good. And what we're going to do is it's like, yeah, sometimes, like, listen, everything in moderation, including moderation, right? We're not telling everyone like you need to sleep all this time, all this thing. Like, go out and have a drink and have a great time and stay up late sometimes. But also maybe once every 2 weeks, have a 12-hour Sunday where you go into bed and you lay there. Why? And we're going to just talk about how awesome that feels.
That's called bed rot, and people love doing it. And it was a big trend during the pandemic that I think people have sort of, we don't talk as much about bed rot,
like goblin mode and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But it is kind of interesting because like it started as a pandemic thing, but the core of it was fighting against the productivity culture.
Right.
And it was just like, I'm just going to bed rot, like, and that's fine. And I'm going to enjoy it and I don't care. And I'm going to get delivery food and maybe I'm even going to eat it in bed and I don't care.
Yeah. Cause like what you can do at that point is you almost start marketing it as, I don't know what you call it. Like it's super, super, super indulgent. You don't even lead with the wellness factor. You don't lead with a rational. You lead with it just feels good.
I think that's interesting. You lead there. It's making me think of two things. One, the indulgence over wellness.
Yeah.
And like, let wellness be the outcome that you experience rather the thing that you tell people, because the minute you tell people that, you feel like you're being lectured.
Yeah.
So let it be the outcome. And the other thing is have one day like this a week.
Yes,
Versus,
exactly.
okay, now every
Totally.
night you're going to
Yeah.
try to sleep well.
Now
Like, I
you
know
must-
every
no,
night
no.
I'm trying
Just
to
chill.
sleep well. It's
Chill
like
and enjoy.
chill and enjoy.
What's the best way to do that? Bed.
One night a week.
Yeah. I didn't start like any sport I didn't start because I'm like, this will have wonderful logical repercussions on my health system. It was like, no, this is fun. Oh, and it just so happened to help build strength or build my cardio or whatever it was. And to me, I'm kind of like, okay, if we've tried the rational and they're all sort of intangible and tough to pin down, what if we went with the very rational that like, man, when you get an awesome bed and you lay in it and you hang out and with all of the modern like economy of like entertainment that you can do in bed, like, dude, I mean, I'm sure both of you know this. Like, I sleep, I'm probably in the middle of you two. I sleep probably about 8 hours a night, but I'm in bed early because I just like to hang out in bed.
That's my nightmare. But I'm not a religious woman at all. But let's bring back the day of rest, you know?
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out a different way at this, guys.
No, it's interesting. I had never thought about it as, because when somebody starts having a conversation with you about fix your sleep,
Yeah.
I think of it.
It's tense.
I think of it in its entirety. Like, okay, 7 nights a week, better
Yeah.
sleep every night. If someone says, what if one day a week you tried really hard to, even if you don't
Not
end
try
up
to
sleeping,
sleep.
just rest.
Just enjoy
And
the time
enjoy
in
it.
bed.
It's interesting. Take the pressure off a little
Take
bit.
the pressure off. And then it also becomes one of those things where if these people are aware of, yeah, I know I'm not sleeping well enough, you're like, whoa. Hey, buddy, we don't need to talk about that yet.
You're all right, man.
You're good, dude. Let's just chill in bed for a bit. You know what I mean?
All right. So we're building a bed for all of
I
humanity.
don't know. Does that feel more?
What's interesting is that staying in bed, at least when I grew up and where I grew up, and I'm pretty sure it was the same here, was associated with laziness.
Totally.
So you got to shift that.
You got to shift it.
Because like growing up, if I would like stay in bed until 10 a.m. on a weekend,
Yeah.
you know, you'd get out of bed and you get the eyes of like
Yeah,
your parents
yeah.
being like,
Oh,
you
here we
lazy
go.
fuck, like
Yeah.
what are you doing? As
Yeah.
opposed to going out and being out in the world and discovering the world or studying or whatever.
Dude.
But that's somewhat's it's gotta change.
Yeah.
Of course, like if you went to bed at 6 a.m. because you were drinking, then yeah, I'll still like roll my
Yeah.
eyes at you, kids.
Yeah. Youth.
But if not, then yeah, like the bed shouldn't be associated with laziness.
I think that's a huge thing because I'm not going to drum up my entire childhood, but I think that is the core of, I mean, I just was naturally a bad sleeper, but that is the core of how I was like, everything rest had to be earned, and laziness was like waking up late was definitely like a association to laziness.
This is interesting now. This is very interesting because now we're almost in a weird way discussing a solution that jumps right in the face of sleep efficiency and everything says, right? Because I think what we're saying here potentially with something like this is everyone, trackers, all those things, all they typically say is like no screens in the bed. When you go to bed, do this. When you get up, make it to sunlight, this. What if it was actually the opposite? What if it was make bed just a bigger extension of your life? Do everything you're going to do. Why? Because then eventually you'll fall asleep and just keep sleeping. Just keep sleeping in that place you're comfortable. I have no science to back this up.
I'm just someone will refute that theory.
I love the contrarian approach of like, hey, you know what's not going to help people? Pressuring them into sleeping more efficiently. Because when you're like, remove all screens, make sure you wake up to natural light. Like that stuff is like, none of that sounds fun.
I love the idea of like get in bed at 7 p.m. and eventually you're going to fall asleep.
Totally. I love that. But if you said like, all right, in our family, we're going to implement Saturday nights are 9 p.m. in bed and no one sees anyone until 9 a.m. Just chill in bed. And obviously, like, you know, with little kids, I'm not saying like, you can't come in or anything weird like that. But it is just like, there is something interesting in sort of this like moment of rest.
Yeah. I think removing language like wasted day
Yeah.
and like, well, did you earn this nap? Or like, there's just a bit of, I think, a cultural reframe about, again, not the wellness of sleep. Because I think everyone's like, yeah, I know sleep is important, but more so about how easy sleep should be.
Sleep's awesome.
Sleep's awesome. There's your line.
Beds are awesome. No, because and this is why I'm glad you two are on this, right? Which is like, Roman, I imagine I take you to be a person probably, and I'm probably a little more like this too, considering some of the things I've done to my sleep lately, where it's like, oh, I'm having this problem. Okay, I'll approach it and fix it because I'm probably all right already at sleeping, and I can just move a few knobs around and boom, I'm doing it even better. Jesse, you've always had a lifelong problem with being able to sleep correctly. So all this stuff just sounds really cute to you, but is like, no, you don't get it. Like, I can't, you know what I mean? I'm certainly, like when people are like, oh, have you tried melatonin? I'm like, no, I haven't. So maybe there are some things I could probably do. Right.
But yeah, like when I tell you that I literally cannot turn my brain off, which is probably my main problem. And I have done all the things, you know, I work out, I exert a ton of energy through the day. I used to work out at night. I changed it to the mornings because supposedly that was having an effect. I try to stop working. I used to just like work and then go straight to bed. And now I always try to take at least 30 minutes to do something else. But I cannot turn my brain off, and my sleep, my wake and dream worlds are too mixed. And like everything I dream about is things that are happening. Like I'll be writing presentations in my head in my sleep.
Yeah.
I can't stop. I don't like, and I don't want to take drugs. I don't want to be like Benadrylled out every night.
No.
Like, I mean,
no, I don't like that either.
Like once a quarter, I think I'm going to take some sleepy meds.
Scientifically proven to actually not work. You sleep,
it's just crap sleep,
but it's crap sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. This podcast is your case is really interesting, and I don't want to get into like, I'm not a sleep doctor, but one question, because it's about turning your brain off. Do you sleep better when you're on vacation?
No.
Okay.
Really? Interesting.
But that's actually for another reason, which is I want to have fun. I'm like, oh, is the sun out yet? Like, are we going to do things? Are we like,
FOMO?
I have major FOMO when I am asleep, and I'm like, literally at first sign of sunlight, I'm like, let's go do something.
So I might make the argument you have a rise and grind mentality applied to just about anything in your life.
Yes. That is correct. So maybe I'm not the, I'm not the audience.
I think this is a common problem. Do you know what I mean? And like, that's my thing is like, I think a lot of the things that people are like, here's how we optimize sleep, are really effective for people who already have a certain relationship with sleep, and borderline pointless for people who don't have that relationship with sleep.
But I do like, what I like about what we talked about is maybe the goal is not actually what we said at the very beginning of this podcast, which is to get better sleep. And it's just to feel more rested.
Yeah.
Or to embrace resting. Like, because I don't know that I'm ever going to sleep 8 hours a night every night. And the minute that's the goal is the minute I feel like I'm failing at something. But when you say, let's start to shift the conversation about rest isn't something that has to be earned, and like a wasted day is fine. It's not actually wasted at all. And like the bed is an indulgence, not a wellness tool. Like it's indulge, not seek better wellness. I'm suddenly like, oh, okay, you're changing actually my perception and my relationship with the idea of rest. And actually now you're taking the pressure off of me to be a better sleeper. And like maybe resting, I'm going to take a nap. And I'm like, oh, a nap. That doesn't usually happen to me, but like, cool. It's nice. Interesting.
I think you're right. And it's funny because I know I started on this side, which is that originally I was like, what's the rational reason we can use to talk to people into this? Mm-hmm. And now I'm being more and more like, well, people have tried that It's got to be irrational. Like the whole, like, to your point, like if you talk to my wife about the role of a bedroom, she sleeps very well. And I guarantee you, it does not match with what doctors would say the role of a bedroom is, which is essentially just to sleep, right? Like, you should not be doing anything else there. Yeah. She loves living in her bed. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. And our kids hang out in our bed with us and all this stuff. It's great. And we both sleep really well. And I think if you said to people like, listen, just use it as essentially a sleep machine room, that's a hard sell to people, man.
Yeah, I think what I'm realizing is
it's
like
joyless.
You bring a little joy back. You actually, in order, my thesis statement, I would say, is in order to, what was your question at the beginning, Roman? How do we improve sleep?
How do we fix the sleep crisis in America?
In order to fix the sleep crisis, you don't make it about sleep at all.
Make it about rest and enjoyment.
I maybe. This is focus group of one.
I know.
Right here, right? It's
sure.
Because you have a massive, I think, of the 35%, I think the bigger chunk will be people who can improve it through the small things and are not aware of the small things.
Right.
So I think, and we're probably approaching time to wrap.
Yeah.
But I think there is when I think back at what we talked about for the last hour or so, you have big societal long-term things that you can do in parallel to more short-term feel like marketing things. And I think in the big societal legislation around should school start later, I can already hear people say, yeah, but if school start later, then work's got to start later,
right? Which
is true. And if work starts later, you can't extend it past the current stop time, because otherwise you have the same problem. You're just going to go to bed later. So then if working hours are lower than they are today, you're going to have another kind of productivity issue. Probably. I don't have the data on this, but I still think that kids should be able to sleep more to both educate them, but also perform better. I think if you want to take it to like a cigarette, like smoking comparison, like the focus group of one, but I'm quite sure the data will prove it. The day pictures of like black lungs and pierced throats started showing up
on cigarettes,
on packs of cigarettes, that was good. That was pretty fucking good, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, this is like aggressive. You can't show direct cause and effect as much on sleep, but whatever. Are there PSA messages on your TV that show up at 9:30 p.m. saying blue light increases your risk of blah blah blah, and it is recommended to stop looking at a TV 60 minutes before going to bed?
I honestly don't think
it's
it would
a
work.
package of things.
Yeah,
it's a package of things.
Yeah.
So my point is, there's like long-term things through legislation. And I think when you get through to the short-term things, we talked about how do you show cause and effect?
Yeah.
Like Simon, I think you pushed on this. I think it's a very good point. You talked, Jesse, a few times about taking the pressure off, including in the last 5 minutes, which I think is a very good point. So maybe some of it is going to be about taking the pressure off, as in you can start small.
Yeah.
But some of it will be reframing the message. It's like, it's not about that checklist and of sleep. It's like, just how about you're going to feel more rested? How does that sound?
Yeah.
That takes the pressure off. And then that little nugget that we played with a little bit about the bed, like work on the misperception of being in bed, about being associated to laziness or whatever. Like suddenly you have long-term, you have short-term.
Yeah, some flashy sort of
legislation,
campaigny
you
things.
have more campaigny things.
Yeah.
And you're starting to talk about something that over time is gonna show results.
Yeah.
We'll add bedisawesome.com to our list of the
bedisawesome.com
URLs that we want to buy.
Okay, so we got 2 minutes left. I guess I'll ask the question. Did we crack it?
You go.
Well, I'll let you know how I sleep tonight. No. Yeah, I think we've started to, honestly. I mean, I will say, even in this conversation, for me, I've always thought about, how do I sleep better? How do I sleep better? How do I sleep better? And now I'm starting to literally wonder, well, what if I'm just more rested?
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty interesting reframe for someone like me, who obviously is not representative of all the sleep crisis. But yeah, I'm interested.
Roman.
Well, I think this, I didn't it didn't help ourselves by bringing a subject that's like big societal, I don't think you can crack it in an hour.
No.
'Cause it's not a marketing issue. I'm not saying all marketing issues can be cracked in an hour, but at least you can have good ideas. But there's plenty other subjects that I think we could have talked about, like comparison, like what other public health things have been like slowly growing without never people knowing it, and then how were they solved? Like the business of sleep, we didn't really get in there. I was surprised because the business of sleep has gotten massive. We know the trackers, we know the beds, we know like there's a lot. Are there other businesses in the sleep industry that could actually help resolve this? We could have gone there. So there's a lot of things, of subjects that I think we could keep talking about. So to answer the question, did we crack it? I would say we didn't fully crack it, but we have a good framework to keep thinking.
Yeah. I think I'm probably somewhere close to you, Roman. I'm like, we didn't crack it with an asterisk, which is like, we didn't crack it, but after an hour, I'm excited to crack it. If that makes sense. Yeah. You brought up some good points there at the end, which is it is sort of like a multi-tiered problem. And I think there's obviously like very clear and obvious sleep hygiene elements. There's cultural elements. And then there's also just like, how do you make people give a crap elements of this that are all sort of need to be addressed? And they'd probably require a bunch of tactics, a bunch of policies, a bunch of this, that, and the other thing. Because to just go like, oh, the secret to it is show the black lung. I don't think there is any black lung with sleep.
No.
And it's a little more nuanced than that. And it's a little more, what's the word? Like we kind of made a lot of these problems kind of through the way cultures sort of shifted and stuff. So
totally,
I don't think we cracked it, but I'm with you, Jesse. I'm like, oh, we got some, like, there'd be some hypotheses now I'd be very curious to do. And I think the other interesting thing too, not to ramble on so much, is like, man, sleep is personal, eh? Like it is so different for everyone. It's not just like, I don't mean to keep bringing back to cigarettes, but cigarettes are so binary because your relationship to it is either you're a smoker, you're a non-smoker. Mm-hmm. Sleep's like, I sleep weird, or I do sleep really well, or I don't sleep well, but I can sleep well, or I never could, it's crazy.
That's fair.
Good stuff. Good chat.
So fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm happy because we got a this, that, and the other thing in the last 2 minutes from Simon.
We did.
We also got a little A.
I noticed that too.
I think, when it got really serious, it's almost emotional. We got the A. So anyway, good stuff, you guys. And we'll be back next week.
If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for another episode, don't be afraid to reach out. Shoot us an email, hello@crackitpodcast.com. Please rate, subscribe, or follow us wherever you listen to your podcast, or just tell a friend. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.